and welcome to the About Her show. And thank you so much for gracing us with your presence today. It's an absolute pleasure and honor to have you on the show.
Thank you. Thank you. Looking forward.
Same here. So, this is a platform where we get trailblazing women to share the story of their lives with us, to tell us about their successes, failures, ups and downs, challenges. So, not only do they get to talk about their journey, but also they help us to inspire women who are listening in. I mean, we know that there are so many women out there who have dreams, ambitions, aspirations, but are not able to fulfill them for one reason or the other. So we want them to listen to the conversation, get inspired, and get out of whatever is holding them back from realizing their potential. And eventually, we want to build a community of women who are there to help, support, mentor, and be there for each other. So, a very, very warm welcome to you.
Thanks.
Okay, so just like an icebreaker, can you just tell us a little bit about your early days, your childhood, and if you think any of your experiences from those days helped shape your personality or make you the person that you are today?
Well, 76 years, it's sort of difficult to compress it into a soundbite. All I can tell you is that my childhood was not extraordinary. It was a very regular childhood of a young girl growing up in Delhi to a bureaucrat father and a homemaker mother. Nothing exceptional about it at all, but it was a warm and wonderful home environment and a very nurturing environment. And I grew up with books surrounding me, because my father's emphasis was on all of us. I have 4 siblings. We are 4 siblings. I have one brother and 2 sisters.
Okay.
And we were just encouraged to read, and we were encouraged from a very early age to be our own people, to take ownership for our decisions, to take ownership of our lives. And parents were always there to support us, guide us, but essentially to stand up for what you want, what you believe in, what you want to make of your life. These sort of decisions were not imposed.
Okay. Okay. So, Shobha, you had a long and illustrious career, and I'm sure it must have been full of different kinds of challenges. And of course, all those years ago, but when it comes to women, there are certain challenges which I think continue to hold true even today. I mean, today, when women step out to work, there are so many biases and, discrimination that they face. So could you tell us a little bit about your journey and if you faced any of those challenges, and if yes, then what kinds?
I'm always asked this, and it's always tempting to come up with a hard luck story or a story of being discriminated against or facing incredible odds. I'm sorry, but I don't have a hard luck story to share. I was maybe privileged enough to be spared what a lot of people, perhaps of my generation, when they talk about being discriminated against, maybe it's the choices I made, maybe it was my own attitude, maybe it was my personality, maybe it was always thinking on my feet, being practical, being aware of what I wanted, what I was willing to do for what I want. I think clarity is very important. So, but that does not mean I do not identify with what other women have gone through. But I don't have a personal horror story to narrate. Okay. I never encountered any kind of sexual discrimination or any discrimination based on gender. In fact, I took it so much for granted that my choices and my privileges were completely free of any of this. And I just went ahead and did what I wanted to do. It didn't occur to me even for a minute that as a woman, my choices were limited or that I should curtail my dreams. Nothing in the world, actually, I felt was, the dice were not loaded against me. So in a way, I was maybe blessed or lucky or fortunate. But I have seen my colleagues, I've seen countless women, thousands of women, struggling through the early years of their lives, struggling to make something of themselves, struggling to find their feet, up against all kinds of hostility, barriers, discrimination, even abuse. And I've always written about women, and they've always been the protagonists of my books. I've always stood up for women. Equally, I stood up for men who I feel were being discriminated against. So I'm kind of gender agnostic in that way. I'm not aligned to any kind of activism. I'm not defined by a, a, a branch of feminism which I identify a lot more with the Western way of thinking, the way they are, maybe the way they're raised, the way they're educated, and how insecure Western women are as compared to Indian women. I find Indian women have intrinsic strength and confidence, which society often tries to suppress or kill.
Yeah.
But they are not, urban Indian women are much, much more self-assured in their own being, in their own personality, in their bodies
Yeah.
than Western women.
That's true, actually. Yes. As more and more, I think women are coming out and into the open and getting educated and working. I think we're more balanced in our approach, or I don't know, maybe we have strong family values or whatever. But yes, the urban Indian woman is definitely very, very self-assured. Yeah. So, growing up, did you have anyone who you looked upon as a mentor or as a role model or somebody who really inspired you?
It kept changing. I didn't have any one person. I didn't have any one hero that I was looking at, or looking up to, or worshipping in any way, except for Elvis Presley. And that might sound a bit mad, but if there's anyone at all who's been consistent in my life, it's been Elvis Presley, and all that he stood for, his music, his attitude to life, his vulnerability, his breaking the rules,
Mhm.
his gift, his talent,
Yeah.
his fight, his struggle to be himself and create his own music. So it sounds perhaps bizarre to a lot of people, but on my 75th birthday, I had an Elvis Presley birthday party because
Oh,
he's
wow.
really one iconic personality who has inspired me my entire life. Of
Okay.
course, there are many, many others who one meets. My the person who had enough faith in me as an athlete, as a competing athlete,
Okay.
to train me for free without charging me any anything, any fees for it, and
Mm.
even going to the extent of buying me my first pair of spikes because as a runner, as a competing athlete, because
Mhm.
my father said, well, sports are not a priority in this family, and spikes are a luxury.
Mm.
So he got me to the extent, the confidence he built in me, Ulal Rao, to call him, of course, sir,
Mm.
to get me to compete, to be selected for the nationals. I definitely owe him a big one. Uh, there were many teachers in school and college I admire very much. There's Nisha Dikunia, my English professor at St. Xavier's, who I looked up to a lot,
Mm.
uh, exactly for how good she was as a teacher and how she made literature and writing so attractive to someone like myself who came from an athletics, basketball, and hockey background. And of course, I'd always read books, always loved books, always expressed myself through writing.
Mm.
But the love for analytical, critical essays and plays and poetry actually came from Nisha Dikut.
Okay. All right. Good to know that. So, many of us out there, I mean, including me, we are aspiring authors, trying to get into that space and and it's not very easy, considering that even if you write well, but, getting your work published. So, are there any tips that you could share with someone who is wanting to get into that space and you think there are certain things which are an absolute must?
I would say you write because you want to write,
Yeah.
not because you want to get published, not because you want fame, not because you want to be uh, Salman Rushdie. And
Mm.
look, I mean, that comes with a lot. That territory is in itself comes with many minefields. You
Mm.
write because you have something to say. You write because you're a storyteller. You write because you have a point of view you want to share. So start when you want to become a writer. For heaven's sake, don't talk about it. Just go ahead and write. Is my biggest tip. A
Okay.
writer doesn't have to speak about writing or think about writing. You just get down to it and write.
Mm. Mm.
And reading, of course, helps a lot. Travel helps a lot.
Okay.
because all your senses are involved in the writing process. It's not just about your brain, sitting there and processing words and stringing one sentence together after another. It's
Mhm.
about observation, it's about curiosity, it's about passion, it's about being interested in human beings, it's about storytelling. Unless you're doing a different kind of book, unless you're writing non-fiction or academic books, that's a different category altogether. But for someone like myself, I see myself primarily as a storyteller, and stories can be told in countless ways. You have to pick your own story and tell it the best you can. Uh, Come up with a style which should be innate, should be inborn, and don't think in terms of writing like someone else. Write like yourself. So finding your own voice, the earlier you find it, and the more confident you feel about your own voice with all its fault lines and maybe lots of things that you don't particularly love about it because you're always thinking, oh, so and so would have written this sentence better. But
Mhm.
no, this is your sentence. This is how you want to write it. This is your book. This is your story. So I think that comes with having self-belief, and for a writer, it's very important. Especially early in your career, you may not get a lot of people who find your writing interesting or worthy or sharing with a wider audience. So it's important to find your voice and own it and work on it.
Yeah, I think that's very important. You have to be true to yourself, and it has to be you, not somebody else.
Yes.
That I
Yeah.
think is very important. Okay, Shobha, women, I mean, I feel I do it all the time myself. You have to balance your personal life with your professional life, and somehow still society has greater expectations out of women when it comes to, the various roles and the various things that we have to do on a day-to-day basis. So, I mean, how do you think women should kind of balance it out, or should there be a balance? I mean, what are your views on it?
I don't think anyone has the right to dictate to any woman how she should balance her life. She decides for herself. There's
Okay.
no formula, there's no mantra, because
Hmm.
every woman's life is different.
Yeah.
Her backstory is different, her circumstances are different. But so long as she knows her own priorities, she knows what works for her,
Yeah.
she knows at what point in her life she wants to give this much of herself to herself exclusively,
Yeah.
and at what point she's okay with sharing that very precious time with family, or if she chooses to have children,
Hmm.
or is in a work situation where you have to deal with colleagues, about prioritizing what's important, because the day only has 24 hours,
Yeah.
and the day doesn't extend for any woman, even though she'd love it to be more elastic. Most women I know are always complaining about not having enough time,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
what they actually are saying is they don't have enough time for themselves,
Hmm.
and which is a universal truth. Women never ever have enough time really to give themselves that level of importance or priority.
Hmm. Hmm.
So I have not really had to struggle with that conflict myself, because I was pretty clear from the time I had my first child
Hmm.
that my priority would be my family first,
Hmm.
and everything else I would manage to do around that very important commitment.
Okay.
Once that commitment is made, things do fall into
Yeah.
somehow, they do almost miraculously fall into place.
Hmm. Hmm.
And if there are a few things you have to let go, well, so be it. Let it go. After all, you've chosen. You've chosen to raise a family, and I have a large family.
Yeah.
And I've never regretted that decision. I think they've only enriched my life.
Hmm.
So each woman picks, has the choice, or most women should, because choice is the most powerful word for a man or a woman. If you can choose how you want to lead your life,
Hmm. Hmm.
what you want to do with your time, you can be on top of your time. Uh, I would say you're a winner.
Yes. Yes. But having that clarity, I think you have to know what is it that you want.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. So, setbacks and challenges are part and parcel of life. Everybody has to go through them. So, I'm sure you've also been through your share of setbacks. So, how do you think a person should stay motivated and resilient in the face of all the setbacks?
Uh, Setbacks, disappointments, it's part of every human being's life, and one should accept it in one's stride. There are going to be hurdles, there are going to be pitfalls, there are going to be barriers that you can't always clamber over. But maybe I'm just very philosophical.
Mhm.
I never look back. I don't waste energy and time on the what ifs of my life.
Mm.
And what if that had not happened, or what if I had taken this road and not that road?
Yeah.
I just get on with stuff.
Okay.
So my way of dealing with setbacks is similarly that I review the setback. I
Mhm.
try and ask myself, how differently could I have done something? And
Okay.
if the answer is there were a lot of circumstances which were loaded against my having done that other thing,
Mm.
then I just dismiss that other thing as being not for me. Because not everything that you might choose chooses you. So you have to know that there are some things that are beyond you. And
Yeah.
you have to shrug and say, let me get on to the next thing that excites me and just keep going.
Yeah. I think that's very important. Staying the course is very important no matter what. Yeah. So, Shobha, young girls of today, who are on the threshold of their personal and professional lives, say somebody who's an 18 or 19-year-old, what would you like to tell them to how to approach life both personally and professionally?
I have raised a large family of boys and girls who are all not just young adults. My oldest son is 50 and my youngest is 35. And I have 7 grandchildren. So I have a fair amount of experience with young minds.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I also know that they resist any kind of yarn that an older person wants to give them.
Mm-hmm.
They have their own ways of doing it, and I respect that. And I'm always learning from them.
Yeah.
It's the other way around. It's not that I want to impart any great mantras to them.
Mm.
Very often, I feel like sitting them down and saying, "Tell me how you've done it, and I'll be inspired." Because every generation comes with a very different mindset. Their
Yeah.
ambitions are different. Their
Yes.
points of view are different. Their moral standards are different.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
to sit in judgment over young people, I think is the worst sin any adult can commit.
I agree.
Because I know how I resented being told what I should do, what I should think, how I should lead my life when I was a young person.
Mm.
And I pretty much made my own rules and made my own decisions. But I would say that today's world is so exciting, so vast, so filled with opportunities and possibilities
Mm.
that any young person should consider himself or herself very lucky to be
Mm.
a part of this incredible churn that the world is processing and undergoing,
Mm.
and to say, well, wow, I'm a part of something so huge, such a defining moment in history,
Mm.
especially post COVID. I think we've all realized, especially the young,
Yeah.
how how very delicate life, how how susceptible each one of us is. We didn't even know whether we'd be taking our next breath.
Yeah.
It changed everybody. It certainly changed. So I'm
Yeah.
sure young people today are breaking such new ground, especially in India, when I see the young women excelling
Mm.
in fields which were absolutely unthinkable for my generation. They were not options that we had.
Mm.
Even the government is making it easy for young women to get into non-traditional fields, get into the armed forces. And when I see these young women soaring high, you know, piloting fighter jets and beyond, now in the Navy, also in the Air Force, marching side by side with their male counterparts.
Mm.
This is a huge shift that many more women today have access to education as compared to when I was growing up,
Mm.
where education was considered more a privilege, not a right.
Mm.
It's a great thing to see even across the board at every level of society.
Yeah.
The people who work with us at home, their entire focus and priority is educating their kids. And most of their salary goes towards that, and particularly educating their girls. In the old days, you would always hear domestic help saying to you, the minute my daughter is of a marriageable age, 16, 17, I'm only saving for her marriage. Today, they say, I'm only saving to make sure she gets a good education. She goes to college, so her life is better than. That's a big shift.
Yes, yeah. Yeah. So, of course, we see all these changes happening around us. And yes, there's a lot of progress in terms of women, going out there and doing things which were unheard of, earlier. But despite that, I feel we still have miles to go. There are a lot of challenges that they still face. So, what are your views on that? Or what do you think are the kind of challenges which women continue to face?
Well, pay parity in the West is far worse than it is in India. So that's one small big thing that we can be quite proud of. Corporate women are not discriminated against. There's a stage for almost the last 15 or 20 years when um, the country's 15 top banks were led by women.
Yeah.
That was already a huge thing. I don't know of any European, or certainly not in America or Japan, where so many banks were headed by women.
Yeah.
It's not easy, but then it's not easy for anybody. I don't think men have it that. We keep focusing on how terrible it is for women. It's a competitive, harsh world. Everyone is competing for something or the other, a better life, better opportunities. So women have the whole thing of, oh, but I have to look after my family as well and come back and do the housework. Yes and no, because I think a lot of young husbands today completely and totally support their wives' decisions to be out there working, because the two-income family is a reality. It's no longer something that, oh, I allow my wife to work. The income is needed. So there is that respect, and therefore the adjustment that goes with that decision, that men don't leave just bringing up children or doing stuff around the house to make the wife's life easier. They don't look down on it anymore as they once did. It's not just her sole job. I can only talk about urban realities. I mean, if we start talking about rural, the situation of women in rural India, then it's a whole different program. And I'm not really qualified to talk on it. I don't have research to back me. I can only talk about what I know.
Yeah, of course. That is true. Still, yes, of course, we have come. And I think when we have these kind of conversations, and we are, in a way, I feel, when we have these platforms, these conversations, we are encouraging. And as it percolates down, then maybe, we can help in changing people's views, people who are still not willing to change, or like you said, not in the urban areas, but even tier 2, tier 3 cities for that matter. So there is a lot of progress, but I still feel that, yes, a little more awareness has to percolate down.
I think what a lot of people forget in this mad scramble to get ahead in life is that actually our constitution guarantees us the exact same rights.
Yes.
A lot of women are not aware of it because families don't want them to be aware of it. They keep them ignorant. If you go to a police station, they will not tell you that, by right, you are protected if you're a victim of abuse, of domestic abuse, violence, any of it. Most police stations will say, oh, yeah, this is husband-wife ka mamla, we don't want to get involved. And therefore, a lot of assistance at the right time is denied to women. But the counter argument is that women themselves should make sure they're aware of what is rightfully theirs. They don't know whether, even when it comes to matters of property, inheritance, their place in their family structure, when it comes to dowry demands, when it comes to unrealistic expectations from women to hand over their entire salary to the mother-in-law. Well, yes, if you choose to do it, that's a different thing altogether. But if it's under coercion, for example, a lot of women will dare not say in a joint family, if there is a kidney that's required, it will always be the bahu of the family who somehow miraculously, she's the one whose kidney is the best match, and she's the one who has to donate a kidney. no
Yeah.
one else. It's almost as if that is expected of her. Otherwise, the family is going to look down on her as an uncooperative daughter-in-law who's not willing to sacrifice a kidney for a male relative. Now,
Hmm.
these are so deeply entrenched in our society. I don't see it. Even legislation can't change that. Even no matter how much we may agitate on the streets and demand various concessions, it's not going to happen till the, 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 the construct itself changes. So I'm not going to beat a drum about this patriarchal society and how terrible it is to women, because I don't think any society in the world is not patriarchal.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
have just been able to um, be upfront about it, talk about it, have many conversations around it, which already says a lot about our ability to articulate it, our ability to, and the confidence to raise these issues and say something should be done about it.
Yeah.
In so many countries, whether even across America, Europe, anywhere, traditional societies, anywhere in the world, Africa, uh, patriarchy rules, patriarchy is the dominant construct.
Yes.
It has always been so, but the West prefers to sweep that under the carpet and pretend that equality is what they've struggled to achieve and they've achieved it, but which is not accurate at all. They
Hmm.
suffer, women across the world suffer as much
Yeah.
because of the kind of dominance that is imposed on them through tradition and through norms, societal norms.
Absolutely. No, no, it's not that it's only there here. It's everywhere. Patriarchy rules roost everywhere. And yes, here, I mean, I feel that we are talking about it. And of course, sooner or later, things, I mean, they are changing, they will change even more. But
Definitely, they will.
yeah.
Definitely, they will, because a lot of women today are in a position where they can speak up. 20 years ago, they couldn't speak up.
Hmm.
And the only thing that can give women, any woman, that kind of level of confidence is if she earns her own money and she doesn't have to ask for a handout from either her in-laws if she's married, or her husband, or
Hmm.
her father, or an uncle, or a brother. If she has a kind of, if she has control over her own finances,
Yeah. Yeah.
then she can have control over other very major decisions in her life. It cannot happen that as a woman, I can talk of being self-sufficient and independent with not a paisa in my bank account and nothing to fall back on, because that's living in la la land. It doesn't work like that.
Yes.
So women at work is what our society has accepted for the last 40 or 50 years. As a working grandmother myself, I'm very proud that this is what I'm conveying to my granddaughters and my grandsons,
Hmm.
that a woman's work never has to stop. There's no reason for it to stop.
Yeah.
And that I take great pride in what I do. And so should every person, so should every woman.
Yeah, that's right. So, continuing in the same vein, a lot of conversations happening nowadays about people's mental health, mental well-being. So, do you think women's mental health needs more attention than that of the other gender, or you think it's the same amount of emphasis that we need to put on both?
The other gender, uh, most of the time, in my experience, they're in denial about mental health problems in the first place. They
Okay.
don't acknowledge that they have a problem. So
Hmm.
to get a man to go to a therapist in a family is perhaps one of the biggest challenges any family would face,
Yeah.
because it will always be, it's not my problem, it's your problem or her problem or my wife's problem or my children's problem, or it has nothing to do with me.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
mental health, the focus now being so much uh, on addressing it in a national kind of fashion
Hmm.
is thanks to a lot of women who have taken the initiative and have started to speak up about it and to share their own experiences and to talk about it in a way that is very good communication, very positive communication,
Yeah.
because they've taken away the stigma from admitting that different phases in your life you could face problems
Yeah.
which only professionals can help with, and maybe some kind of medication can help you deal better. And
Hmm.
we do live in a world which is so full of conflict. emotional conflicts, and conflicts in the workplace, and so many maybe traumas that have never ever been addressed completely. So most of us are misfits in one way or the other, but we manage to sort of chug along in a society unless our behavior is that obviously aberrant. Now, uh, in a society like ours, a woman who has mental health issues in the old days would be ostracized from society, ostracized from family, declared a lunatic, ye aurat pagal hai. There'd be no attempt to understand her. There'd only be an attempt to control her. And in the old days, that controlling attempt used to border on sadism and cruelty because she'd just be locked away in a room to rave and rant and shout and scream because she may have been in that phase, in a mood swing phase, which no one was prepared to understand. But today, it doesn't have to be that because there is help,
Yes.
and there is help that you can see, and there is medication that you can certainly get from a professional who can prescribe it.
Yeah.
So these conversations have helped enormously. And even very, very young children today in India are undergoing stress levels which were maybe always there but never talked about.
Yeah.
So schools have started mental health conversations from the age of when the children can actually understand what's being said to them, at the age of 6 or 7 or 8. Most schools in South Mumbai certainly do emphasize mental health as much as physical.
Yeah. It's very important. And yes, issues are definitely going to help. So Shobha, I mean, I notice this a lot nowadays. There's so many people who in their early 40s or late 40s for that matter, they take to what I call midlife rebooting, where they start doing things which are completely opposite to what they had been doing before till that time, like a doctor taking to writing or hiking or gardening or whatever. So what do you have to say about it? Why is this, I mean, so prevalent now? Is this something good or something that we need to like think about? What are your views?
I find it very exciting first. I think one should never close options ever in life. And if you're lucky enough, I wouldn't even call it a crisis, I'd call it a midlife opportunity to change track. And I see it very positive. If you can do it and you can walk away from something that may be really boring to you, which you've never really enjoyed, and you're doing it because it was enforced on you. So many decisions are imposed by family and society.
Yeah.
And at your 40s, you are in a position to be in charge of your own life and your own decisions.
Yeah.
And you say, the hell with all of this, and I want to go trekking, or I want to learn pottery, or whatever it is that you wish to. It's phenomenal. And I would encourage anyone who says, you think it's wise to take a midnight, I'm saying midlife, but why not midnight to decision and break away from what I've done? I'd say 1000%, because it's in a way never too late to save yourself from a life of tedium and boredom and predictability.
Yeah.
And 40 is what? 40 is nothing. I know people who change course at 60 and 70, and wow.
Needs courage, but I think we should, if we can.
Nothing should stop you. Nothing should stop anyone from doing what they choose to do, what they want to do, what their passion tells them they should be doing.
Yeah, correct. So Shobha, as you continue on your career and life journey, what are your aspirations for the future? What do you see yourself doing? Writing more books?
This is the book that is just out in paperback. It's done very well in hardback. I love it. I love writing it. It marked my 75 years, and it was a run up to my 75th birthday. And I think this book says everything there is to say about me, my life, my hopes, my aspirations, my dreams. Insatiable, it says, my hunger for life. And it's not a book about food, but in many ways, food plays a very big role in my life and in the book too. Because I think we tend to underestimate the power of food in our lives. So, what are my aspirations? I don't know whether I look at my life in that kind of a way that I'm here today, where will I be tomorrow? I mean, every day is a bonus, every month is a big bonus every year. Is a triple bonus. I like to live one day at a time. I'm very much a creature of the here and now. I
Okay.
enjoy what I'm doing. This minute, I'm enjoying talking to you. Tomorrow, I might enjoy something else. And life should be like that. There are 3 book offers on the table. Let me see. There's no compulsion. If I feel like taking one up this year, I will. If not, I'll take it up next year or not.
All
I like to travel a great deal, and I like to keep my options open. I don't believe in doing anything because I've got to, because I must write another book, or I must do this, or I must write the next. But I have been writing non-stop in the public domain for 53 years without a break
Wow.
and without ever missing a deadline. And I do enjoy writing my columns a lot. I'm very active on Twitter, on social media, Instagram, etc.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
I love it. I enjoy it, but I can't guarantee that I'll enjoy it next month or next year. So
Hmm.
I don't work with those kind of targets. I never have.
Okay. Okay. So we do love reading your columns and, looking at all your posts on Instagram. So yeah, definitely. Okay. So now we move on to the rapid fire. So 5 quick questions. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So here goes. The first one. What's been the most memorable moment from your career as a writer and a columnist?
The most memorable, it's impossible to single out any one, but I would say, but the it- as as a writer of books, there's no comparison to the feeling that you get when the first copy, advanced copy, comes from your publishers and you're actually holding it in your hand. It's the first physical encounter with your words, and that is absolutely incomparable. That feeling as a novelist, as a writer.
Yeah.
As a columnist, where every column has always been kind of irreverent and in your face and uh, out there and teasing and being wicked on many levels.
Oh,
I can't really think of any one column that stands out as the one defining column that I said, oh my God, I love this column more than all others because I write for a week. It's difficult.
yeah, yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure. Okay, so the next one. One thing people might be surprised to learn about you.
That I'm a closet romantic. I'm I present a totally different picture. I look like a tough lady, dragon lady, but I am very mushy. I
Oh,
cry when I'm watching Hindi films. I cry when I'm listening to music. I cry when I look at a beautiful sunset. I
oh,
cry when uh, something very simple touches and moves me.
mhm.
And each time my husband makes me a great Negroni, I almost weep into that Negroni because he does it so well. So, and
Okay.
we are, both of us are, I think both of us are romantics. He's not closet. I'm very closet. I
Oh,
don't like to show that to the world.
yes, of course, definitely. So, of course, you do a lot of work. You've written so many books and columns, but of course, not everybody praises. There are people who criticize. So, how do you handle criticism of your work?
Criticism is goes with the territory. You can't be a writer, you can't be expressing yourself in the public space and not expect to be trolled, criticized, hated,
Hmm.
despised. I've lived with that for over 50 years. It doesn't bother me at all because I've also dished it out.
Hmm.
There have been at the receiving end of a lot of my criticism too.
Yeah.
And you have to learn how to handle it and do what you think you can do best, which is if you are saying something that A can be defended,
Hmm.
that you absolutely truly believe in, uh, you must be able to stand by your own truths at all times. And if for any reason that you may have um, made a huge error and hurt someone's feelings through something that's completely not correct, accurate,
Hmm.
or you haven't done your fact checking, then be big enough to apologize and say I was wrong.
Yeah.
And it doesn't take anything out of you to acknowledge that. In fact, it makes you a better person because there's no one who's infallible. I'm sure I've made a lot of mistakes in my life.
Yeah.
But if I've made a mistake and it's been pointed out to me, I'm the first person to say I'm sorry, and that's that.
All right. So the next one. One piece of writing advice you wish you had ignored.
I would say it is to rewrite.
Oh,
I did ignore it because I'm not a rewrite kind of a writer. And with someone tells you that, maybe you can actually, what the other person is saying is write more like I write. It's normally a teacher or an editor who's trying to mold you in a very different way, because your writing may not be the conformist way of expressing as the world knows it. I know I faced that a lot when I started using a lot of English, and then I became known as the mother of English, because I used a lot of Hindi words, Marathi words, Tamil words, Gujarati words when I was an editor during my Stardust days. And then they became mainstream and everyone was happily using English, Minglish, Kinglish, etc.
yeah.
But had I listened then, thank God I didn't, that, stop writing like that, I wouldn't have written the way I do. And this is the way I write. I mean, you're not forced to read me, but if you do, I hope you enjoy what you read.
Yes, that's you. That's
Yeah,
probably why a lot of people read, because
yeah.
they want to read you. Okay. So the last one book you think everyone should read and why?
I would say the Mahabharata for sure in translation, which I can't read it in the original. So I've read various interpretations of it, but in English. And each time I've always come away learning something incredible, because it's very profound and it's also very everyday. It's very practical in its advice. It's about human nature at its rawest. It's about ambition, betrayal, lies, deception, love, loyalty, strategy. Every conceivable human conflict seems to have been addressed in the Mahabharata.
Yes.
So it's a book that I like to, from time to time, dip into. I won't say sit down and read it in one go, of course,
Yeah.
but even to watch dramatized versions of it, it's something unbelievable. And for pure writing skill, uh, I've always loved the Russian masters. I go back to Tolstoy and Chekhov, and in terms of storytelling, or to Anna Karenina. I mean, in just the power of the words, the imagery, the way the characters are developed. And Jane Austen, again, you can't fault anything about her stories. Her characters, they live with you. That's why her books are made and remade and made and made and made. And Vikram Seth, who I think is a very divine writer, and certainly my most favorite Indian writer.
Okay. All right. So thank you so much, Shobha. It was
Thank you. That was a great pleasure.
honor. It was wonderful having you on the show. And
Thank you so much. Enjoyed our conversation very much.
thank you.
Okay.
Okay, bye.